Hello, everyone, and welcome to Return to the Realm, a rereaders podcast for the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. I'm Kayiu, joined with Alex and Leah, and today we're going to be covering chapters 10 through 14 of Ship of Magic. So, here, I think this is the part of the book where stuff really starts taking off. Everyone starts leaving on their little quests and adventures and is going out into the world. Um, that doesn't mean, however, that we aren't still completely annoyed at the way that everyone is acting and really just wish that everyone would stop being so stupid.
I think this episode I'm going to hate Keffria most because I just railed her this whole time. I hated her in my notes. I think she's the worst this time.
Yeah, I saw one note of yours that said like stupid ass bitch and it made me laugh.
Damn,
So mad
okay.
at her at that moment. I
Yeah,
had no patience for her left. I couldn't.
she sucks.
Yeah, she's a horrible mom at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we get into slagging off every single character who appears on page, I do have to remind people that this is a spoilers all podcast, so it's spoilers not only for this Live Ship Traders trilogy, but also the entire Realm of the Elderlings, what did you call it, cycle as a whole. So if you haven't read all of those books, do that and then come back and listen to us. Or if you don't care about spoilers, keep listening. But yeah, okay. Let's just jump right into it. Um, so we have chapter 10, Confrontations, which comes right on the heel of Kyle just punching out his own son. Nothing to see here.
My first note for this chapter is I'm not even a full page in, and these people are already pissing me off. Keffria is the most annoying for literally just crying to herself. At like, if my husband knocked my child, my firstborn baby out, you best believe he would not live another like 5 minutes. He would be dead before my baby woke up. I don't know how she's just crying over Wintro like nothing happened. Like, you know exactly who did this. What are you doing?
He like pushed Ronica and then like shook Wintro too, and Ronica still has to like go comfort Keffria because Keffria's having a breakdown, and it's like nothing
Stupid.
even happened to you.
I know.
What?
She is ridiculous. She's making it all like she's the victim and
See,
everything's
yeah, I
happening to
feel
her.
like lots of the Vestrid family just has a victim complex. Like the
Yeah.
Wintro being like, "Oh, I've been taken away from my priesthood." Malta's like whole thing of like, "I don't get to go to the ball." Altia being like, "I don't get Vivacia." They have like their one goal and they're so self-centered for it. And for Kefri, it's like, why can't everyone just get along? Why do I have to be caught in the middle? And it's like, you don't have to be. Just take a side.
I
Like,
know.
have like a stance for once in your life, please.
Yeah, her passivity is the most annoying thing, I think, just because I feel like if I was in her position, I would have made a decision very quickly. And she's just so stuck, and it bothers me so much.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes you can understand like characters who are caught between like conflicting motives, but this should not be one of them. Like this really shouldn't.
Yeah. I think that her watching Kyle knock Wintro out should have been her like deciding moment. It should not be something that she like convinces herself is normal and is fine.
Yeah,
She's
it should have
gaslighting
made it.
herself.
That
Kyle's not gaslighting her, it's her doing it to herself.
It's like
right.
she's like, "Wow, Kyle is so logical, and he can do all the thinking for me." And it's like, no, like he's just saying stuff. Like if you
Yeah.
applied yourself for 1 second, you would recognize that he's saying bullshit, just bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.
He talks in circles and he says so much. Well, okay. He talks so much but says so little that you can't really pick apart what he's saying. So she's like, yeah, that must make sense because I don't understand it.
He just says it with confidence, and it's just like,
Yeah,
cool, must be true then.
definitely. And that's wrong.
Ronica also made me mad because she called Kyle punching Wintrow brawling. It's like, that's not a brawl. A grown man punching a 13-year-old so hard that he just like drops cold is not a brawl.
And it's like between father and son, so like that wouldn't usually be brawling either. And Wintrow didn't even know that he was supposed to be fighting. Like,
Right, it's just child abuse. It's not brawling.
yeah. Ronica pissed me off here too, but she did have one good moment when she defended Wintrow, and she said he was not throwing a temper tantrum. He was trying to make you see his side of things. One doesn't spank a child for courteously voicing an opinion, nor does one strike a man for it. And I loved that. I feel like this section of chapters, Ronica finally realizes like the extent of how badly she fucked up, and she's like slowly trying to scheme a way to fix it.
Yeah, she even says in this one, she wondered, not for the first time, if she'd completely misjudged this man's common sense. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, she did.
no shit.
Yeah, and it's so annoying because like it feels like, on one hand, great that she's finally come to her senses, but like, what changed? Like, homie, Kyle has always been like this. Like, it feels like so weird that she just suddenly comes to her senses. Like, oh man, huh? Guess he is a bad guy. It's like, how did you not know this all along?
We have to give her some credit because Kyle and Althea had been gone for like 8 months, I think. 7 or 8 months. And I think that she probably didn't really see much of Kyle before then because he had his own ship. He was like the captain of his own ship before. So he was off sailing and doing all that stuff the same as Ephraim. And when Kyle came back was, I'm sure, the same time that like Ephraim was back. So she focused more on her husband and stuff and time with him than like keeping a real close eye on what her family is doing.
Fair, but I mean, he must have been around like enough that like, because Keffria has like 3 kids, like.
That's true.
So even if he was like always gallivanting away on his ship, he's visited enough times that like Ronica should have some judgment.
Yeah, you would think his like opinions on the way that women are supposed to act and stuff would have come out a little bit sooner than now. Unless he was like pretending to be so good and like progressive in order to get them to give him the ship. And now that he's got control of everything, he's like, I can like drop this act.
Kyle is just not that scheming. I feel like he's just like, he's too stupid. Like he's genuinely like that's the most like annoying part of his character, right? Because he's just like, everything he does with his full chest. He genuinely believes everything he's saying is so true and right.
And he's very impulsive, and he'll act and then think about it later and be like, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. Oh well.
He's got some hardcore rage issues.
Yes, definitely.
I think this is the chapter, this is the chapter where he basically tells them he's gonna start using Vivacia as a slave ship. And like when Ronica's like, no, don't do that, he's like, okay, well then I'll sail her up the Rainwild River. And it's just like severely fucked up that Ronica is more opposed to him sailing up the Rainwild River than him trafficking slaves.
I know. And I think that the reasoning that she gives is that like Ephraim wouldn't have wanted it, and like Ephraim had like sworn off the Rainwild River. But if Ephraim had known that Kyle wanted to sail their newly quickened live ship with slaves in it in horrible conditions, he would have been like, yes, give him the charts, just taking up the Rainwild River. Like he would have not condoned anything that she's going along with.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like Ronica, it's like weird because she's like, even in her point of view, she's like, she has like this muted sense that slavery sucks, but she's just kind of like, eh. Like, wow, slavery do be bad. Anyways. And it's just like, that's not something you can anyways away, Ronica. Like, please.
Well, in I think the first episode, she even said like she thought that like at least half the slaves had like deserved to be in that position, like they were the ones who brought it on themselves. But like Ephraim felt so strongly about it, she like took a stance with him. And so basically her beliefs on slavery just were because her husband felt so strongly against it.
Hmm.
Ronica, in some ways, is a lot like Keffria. The biggest difference is that Ronica had like a good person husband, and Keffria has a bad person husband.
Yeah. It's kind of weird to see like the traits that they share and how much they passed it on to Malta and how she's so bad now because of the way that like they raised her and the beliefs that they like put upon her.
Hmm.
And so it's so rewarding and refreshing to see her change and grow up because ugh,
Malta
she would
ending
have
up the most well-adjusted Vestard is not like something I would have predicted at the start of the series.
No.
Yeah.
oh, not
I
at all.
I like simply cannot wait till we get to see her just like taking no shit from the satrap.
Same. She drags his ass around like he's a little kid.
And just like shits on him the whole time.
Yes. She's like, if I'm gonna die anyways, I might as well speak my mind.
Right.
Mhm.
When does that happen? Is that just in the last book, or does it happen in Madship?
I think it might just be the last book, but also I have no idea.
Yeah.
Feel like everything with Malta happens so quickly that I can't remember when it starts.
She
Mhm.
sucks for so long and then she like gets better very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm just like imagining like a movie title screen. It's okay, she got better.
Yeah.
That should be like the tagline for this trilogy. Don't worry, Malta gets better.
Yeah, it should be, honestly. Can we put that on the book? Like, I'm gonna go get some sticky notes and write it on each book and put it in the bookstores.
Mhm.
Keep reading, it gets better.
Yeah, honestly, that's the biggest thing about these series. It's like once you're in it for life. But like, there's that initial hump where it's like, oh no.
Yeah, it's like, what am I even reading? Should I continue?
Hmm. But yeah, I had some thoughts on the way like Althea handled stuff at the start because I think it's we start on Althea's point of view if I remember right. Um, and I thought it was really interesting that like I think she like hears Ronica being like, or no, she hears Kyle being like saying something about like hitting his son, and she thinks about Selden first and not Wintrow, and I think that kind of shows like because Wintrow's been gone for so long, she doesn't even really like think of him as part of the family in the same way.
She saw him last chapter or last episode when she was like running out of the house and she's like, "Oh, it must be some distant cousin visiting." Like she forgot that she had a second nephew. Well, that was her first nephew.
Hmm.
So, yeah, Winter's been gone so long that fucking Althea forgot him. Poor guy. But he does say, I think, in this section that he feels like he's no longer part of this family. And it's true. I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty clear that the family also feels like that because like Malta's rude to him as she is to everybody, but Selden like doesn't know who he is, and Kyle just wants to use him, basically.
Ronica, it seems like she's like ostensibly this child is part of our family, but like weirdo. The only one who actually cares about him is Keffria, and she doesn't like actually act on that care enough for it to matter.
she does nothing.
Mm.
She's a horrible mom. I feel like she'd be the type of mom to like where. No, she's not smart enough. But I was gonna say, like, if she was smarter, I could see her being the type of mom to, like, wear a wedding dress to one of her kids' weddings. It'd be Selden's wedding because it would be the boy. She wouldn't want to upstage Malta, but she would upstage like Selden's wife for sure.
I would love that, but then it ends up that like in Shalta they have like a different wedding dress, so it just ends up being like no.
She looked ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Um, oh yeah, another thing for like Althea doesn't really recognize Wintro as like kin is when Wintrow's like up and talking to the rest of the family. Althea says his Haven blood showed plain in him, in the set of his chin and the anger in his eyes. And it's like, no, dog, that's your Vestrid blood. Y'all are stubborn as all hell. That's you, Althea.
But then in the next breath, she does compare him. I think this is like the second time she's done it at least to Ephraim, and she like sees him in like the set of his like jaw or his eyes or something.
Yeah, she does come around quickly, fair. But also, I'm like, initially, she's like, this is a Haven child, not a Vestrid child.
She kind of annoyed me when she did that because you can't put like everything that you feel about the father on the children because those children are not their father, and the decisions that he's making are affecting them just as much as affecting her, and they don't want anything that's happening either. So like they would be on the same team, and I think she does realize that later where she'd be like, Wintro is the only one who I can rely on to like vouch and say that Kyle made this oath like under Saw or to Saw or something like that.
Mhm. I feel like she's almost still using him then, though. She's like,
Definitely.
yeah, and she's also
Doesn't
like,
care.
she admits it to herself at some point, but she's like jealous of Wintro because of his connection to Vivacia. So I think that kind of also clouds the way she looks at him.
Yeah, but I feel like right here and now, she doesn't realize the connection that they have until she goes to visit Vivacia and she says it.
Mm, that's fair. But yeah, I didn't really have many other notes. I had like a long paragraph where it was just like Ronica doesn't have like she like we had the excuse of guilt before. Ronica is no longer crippled by like grief and guilt or whatever. She's fully autonomous. She could do something, but she doesn't because she just assumes that Kyle plays by the same rules as everyone else. And it's like the lots of their rationale and the way they act makes sense when you see inside their heads, but also like I wish they would. I wish every character would be less themselves because I know what's coming, based on them
Mm-hmm.
being themselves.
Yeah, but at the same time, Veronica's like tiptoeing around Kyle. She's like, okay, I know if I do the wrong thing, then he's just going to take complete control because she's put all the cards into his hand herself. And then she's like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. How do I go back?
Mm-hmm.
I have a solution for her, and I said that she should have just given Kyle the charts for the Rainwilds because if she is positive that he'll end up dying up there, that's like guaranteed to get rid of him. Why the fuck wouldn't you do that?
Because
That's the
they
solution.
still ostensibly need him for they need because if he dies, the live ship is also probably dying, and they need the live ship to like have any money whatsoever, and not all the rest of them die.
Yeah, but
Also, she
I
like
feel like
I feel like she's not in like a murder state of mind. She still like
yeah,
wants Keffria to be happy and shit.
she's making the wrong decisions. That's all I know.
Yeah, big time.
But yeah, like my final note is just this is the most frustrating chapter, which is impressive because each previous chapter has been more frustrating than the last. So, you know.
Yeah. My last one is Keffria just became worse than Kyle at this point when she says that slaves are far better. Trade in slaves and take Winter with you if you must, but you mustn't go up the Rainwild River.
Ooh,
You're
no.
the literal worst person on the planet right now, Keffria, and I hope that. No, I'm not going to say anything bad. But I hate her so much. I think enough bad things happen to her kids that, like, that's punishment for her, but it sucks that it had to happen to all the kids.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if she gets any, like, I think her, like, come to Jesus or whatever is just that she realizes Kyle sucks. But I don't
I remember her, she has
remember.
like some self reflection and grows. I don't think there's any like
Yeah,
instigating incident other than like Bingtown falling apart. But yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's a slow thing. Like, once she realizes how poor they are and she has to, like, start doing stuff that the servants did, that's when she starts thinking about everything. And that's when she'll, like, that's like the beginning of her starting to actually think for herself.
Yeah, it reminds me of the whole Elise Hest thing, except the Elise Hest thing happens way quicker, and like Elise
Isn't
get
a shitty character.
yeah, and Elise gets a new man like immediately, so it's like we're not like left like pain, just like move on already.
And I feel like Elise has her own, like, she even starts the book her own character. Like, she has her own passions and her drive and what's like moving her forward. And Keffria doesn't. Like, she's just being pushed along by her family. She doesn't really have any like passion or like anything that sets her apart from
Hmm,
just the Vestrite family.
for sure. Okay. Do we have any other notes for this chapter?
No.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to chapter 11, consequences and reflections. Um, I'm pretty sure. So Altia. Right. Okay. So Altia kind of just wandering around is like, well, what can I do now? She like tries to like uh see if there's any holes in her father's will she can like exploit to like get stuff Vivacia away from Kyle. She goes and talks to Vivacia, um, and I believe meets Amber on the docks, and then we have a little scene with Paragon at the end, and I think that's the sum total of what happens in this chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Also, if
I
I'm
noticed.
sorry, go ahead.
I noticed that the bond between Wintro and Vivacia really reminded me of the Wit bonds and how Fitz kind of feels when he first is bonding to Night Eyes. And like we see that Vivacia can sense and like feel all of the things that Wintro is thinking and feeling. So I feel like it's gotta be like this part at least right now is very strongly like wit based, I think. Especially because the live ships come from the cocoons and the dragons are animals. And I think that like it's gotta be part of the wit. And maybe that's why some people can't hear the dragons because they are like completely deadened to the wit. And so like no amount of like skill or wit will like help them hear them as thinking beings.
Mm.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and they definitely have like I'm pretty sure like they describe the live ships having like a wit not a wit sense. So
Mm-hmm.
like that I also I like the line that you called out there as like evidence for it, where it's like Vivacia is talking about how she's ashamed that she reaches out to Wintro, and it's like that's just Fitz and every wit partner he's ever had, just being like, I
Well,
shouldn't, but I must.
I feel like he didn't feel ashamed until Night Eyes, or like he didn't feel like it was something that he should stop doing until Night Eyes. Because I think that with Nosy, it was natural, so he didn't know that it was wrong in the first place. And with Smithy, it was like he was rebelling against Burrich, and like Burrich had turned him out anyway, so he's like fine. And then with Night Eyes, he realizes like, oh, I actually need Burrich in my life. So like I really shouldn't be doing this, but I need this connection. And that's when he starts feeling bad. And that's when it's the literal strongest bond of his life.
I miss Night Eyes.
I know, me too. I kind of really miss Fitz too. I love like getting the story from such a personal point of view, and I think that that's something that we don't really get in this because we've got so many different people to focus on, and we've got so many different thoughts and feelings and like places that they're going and worries that they're having. It's hard to think in and like feel the story because we don't have just one Fitz to focus on and cry over.
Yeah, for me it's a little bit less immersive because you get to a point where you know Fitz so well that you can really like step into his shoes, but I don't feel like we get to that level of connection with any of these characters just because we're not we're not getting like first person point of view of them, and we're spending time with so many different people.
Mm-hmm. And I think that some people like even take a step back and like take a back seat as the chapters or as the books go on because other people come forward. So it's like so many different. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we just focused on all of the characters that we've had point of views, perspectives from right now, it'd be easier to get that strong immersion. But because we have even more people to come and we like haven't even gotten to all the points of view yet, it's hard.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like another thing is like with Fitz, he's like a fuck up, but he's like an understandable fuck up. We get annoyed, but we're also like relatable. Meanwhile, now you've taken his fuck up and distributed it across several characters and in less relatable ways. And now, so it's just like frustrating without any of the catharsis.
Yeah.
At least for a while.
And none of these guys get a good win. We talked about this, but none of them get any nice successes until the like last 50 pages of the last book.
Mm-hmm. It's just all downhill from here.
Yes. And you think like everyone at this point, I think, believes that they've hit rock bottom, and they're nowhere near rock bottom yet. Like they don't even know what's coming.
Yeah, I think like the only one who like doesn't have that bad of a down spiral is like Brashen. Brashen just gets like a little addicted to Sindon, and then he's like, maybe I should stop being addicted to Sindon, and then he just is.
Yeah.
Where like it's not that simple. He like there, but like close enough.
Yeah. I mean, his problem is the least severe, I think, out of all of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Just some light drug addiction. And then he gets a live ship.
And then he gets a live ship.
Fitz has had worse drug addiction. I think that, like, Rashin's fine.
I don't understand the appeal of Sindon, though, because doesn't he talk about having, like, burns in his mouth? That, like,
Yeah,
doesn't
it
it,
burns holes in
your
your mouth.
or something?
Yeah.
That sounds horrible. I don't get it.
It, like, causes sores and stuff. That does not feel like a comfortable thing.
The way they describe it, it sounds like really intense pop rocks. You know what I mean?
Literal mouth explosions. You lose a tooth when you have some Sindon. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like Harry Potter candy to me. Like the way like they talk about like Fred and George. It's like, yeah, it causes you harm, but it's good, nice, and it's like okay, I guess so. Like yeah, oh yeah, there's like acid pops in Harry Potter. That's what it reminds me of. It's like why would you ever have this? But I guess it exists.
It reminds me of the thing that Dumbledore had in a little candy dish that like you would eat and it like bites your tongue and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
think the rest of my notes are about like Amber and stuff.
Hey, because that's definitely, again, we're just talking about we're missing characters from Farseer, and it's just like Amber, 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 Amber.
Yeah. She's the only one that we've got.
I had one note that was just there's a part where Althea mentions sensing like a ruthlessness in Vivacia, and I was like, is that some foreshadowing? Because that seems like Bolt.
It's definitely, that's what I thought too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a line where it's
the
like,
Vestrits aren't really ruthless. Like they're very
No.
stubborn and prickly, but I wouldn't call them ruthless.
I feel like they're also sensible. Like they can be reasoned with, and I think that someone who's ruthless can't. Like
Right.
they will do just what they believe is right. Kind of like Kyle a little bit.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Kyle's not like strong enough as a character to be ruthless, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a line where she's like, "What's the second in command's name again?" For like
Is
Kyle's
it Torg?
Torg. That's it. So, like, Torg is being an asshole to Althea, and then Althea like starts thinking he was a yapping dog, she was a tigress. One did not waste snarls in such a creature. One waited until one could snap his spine with a single blow. And with a wave of giddiness, Althea realized her thoughts were Vivacia's and Vivacia's were hers. And I'm like, that's some dragon shit. That's some dragon shit
Yeah,
right there.
absolutely. Especially comparing yourself to like a feline, because I think that they're so like dragons are so closely tied to like cats.
Mm. It
Just
also,
like the way they're named and everything.
and like, I feel like this sort of description reminds me so much of how Sinatra would be like, I am a queen. I'm gonna beat all of you up, and like so, like I'm a tiger. I'm a tigress. I'm gonna snap your neck. Like
Yeah,
that's so dragon.
definitely.
Hmm.
I
Also,
know
like, oh, go ahead.
I know that Leah said something about like Vivacia, or she put it in her notes how she like hopes she doesn't understand why Althea hopes that Vivacia wouldn't try and like take things into her own hands.
Hmm.
And I feel like that brought up like we both thought of two different reasons why.
Hmm. Yeah. So my thing is, Althea is still like, she's my little baby, and I gotta protect her. She's growing up in the world, because, like, Althea. Sorry. If Vivacia straight up has to tell Althea, like, I am a ship, I'm not your child, and Althea's like, uh-huh. Anyways, daughter. And it's like, come on now. Like, she doesn't say anyways, daughter, but like, she obviously has that vibe.
Yeah. I can see that, but I think that Althea also from like growing up spending so much time with Paragon, she understands like what can happen when a ship takes matters into their own hands. And she like doesn't want that she doesn't want Vivacia to become that kind of
Mm-hmm.
I almost said person, but like ship. Like she doesn't want her to be like a repeat of Paragon.
And I mean, that makes a lot of sense, given that the next point of view they switch to is Paragon. They love doing that, where they're like, own like little bit of like foreshadowing, or like not foreshadowing, but like reference to other character, immediate
So,
like point of view switch to them. Yeah.
yeah.
So.
I love that Althea thinks if she like Vivacia kills Kyle, he will have brought it on himself. And I'm like, yes, because you told her to be good, and she said she would, but she can only promise so much. I wish she would have done it a little bit. I wouldn't have been mad.
you you're just like Bolt. You're like blood, 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 blood.
Yeah, just when it comes to Kyle, and probably Kennit, and Keffria, and sometimes Ronica.
Every character whose name starts with K.
Yeah, actually.
Mhm. Watch out, Ketrican, you're next.
Never. She's my queen forever.
Mhm.
she's the only good K name that we got right now.
Oh yeah, so we
Speaking
were
of
just talking
K-names-
about
Oh.
the like different reasons that Althea might not want Vivacia to like take things into her own hands, essentially.
Oh. Yeah. My knee-jerk response was like, yeah, she should fucking flip over and kill them all. But I understand, like, from what you guys replied, that makes sense.
I still think she should have done it, at least to Kyle. She shouldn't flip over, but she should like
Just, like,
bring him
lean
here, be like,
and
Kyle,
throw
I
him
have to tell you a secret. Kyle, come here, I have to tell you a secret, and then grab his ass and chuck him off the boat.
Yep.
I
I'm
feel
on
like,
board with
see,
that.
my thing is, I feel like people would miss, like, the rest of the crew would miss Kyle. Or not like miss him, but they'd be like, what happened to Kyle? Weird. Do that to Torg, I don't think anyone would care. Kyle would be like, where's Torg? And it's like, he probably fell overboard. Shit sucks.
She should
Anyways.
also do it to Torg.
I wonder what would happen if, like, Kyle had died before. Like, I think that the whole ship would have gone down in chaos because none of them really understand a live ship, and no one would keep them in control like Kyle did.
Yeah, because Kyle gets rid of everybody that is used to Vivacia, right? Doesn't he,
Yeah.
like, get rid of Ephraim's whole crew?
Yeah.
So, or most of them. So I think they just, like... I think a live ship knows how to get itself back to Bingtown, though. So I'm sure she could, like, sail herself.
Because Paragon gets back on his own multiple times.
Yeah, right.
But I feel like if something happened to Wintro, she would lose it. And so, like, I think that, like, they would start picking on Wintro if Kyle was gone. And then once Vivacia caught wind of that, she would flip. And then everyone would be, like, on tiptoes around Wintro. And that's how he would kind of, like, rise in the ranks. But he would be still way too inexperienced and wouldn't do very well. Like, at least right now.
I love how you say, like, start bullying him as though they, like, don't start as soon as he... Yeah. Like, Torg, as soon as he steps on ship, Torg is like, is this underling? Bully?
I love the little moment where Wintro asks him and is like, why do you do this? Like, what do you feel when you bully people? Why is it something that you do? And then he, like, gets really mad because he's never had to think about that. And poor Wintro gets a little knocked up because of it.
He just, like, don't make me think of that. That's dumb.
Yeah.
Don't make me think thoughts.
No think. Only inflict violence.
I feel like that's a little something that I miss about Wintro is how, like, later on in the books, he keeps his thoughts to himself more, but right now, like, fresh from being from the monastery, he feels so comfortable just voicing everything, and, like, he will think something and then immediately say it, and I liked that, and I miss that from him, because I don't think that he does that very much later. He's, like, slows down and starts to really think and choose his words carefully.
Okay, do we want to talk about Amber, perhaps?
Yes, of course, I love Amber.
I have a question about Amber. Do we ever find out how she gets a storefront on Wayne Wild Street? Because that seems like it'd be hard to do, and she's just, like, rolls into town and makes wood beads and then gets a whole ass storefront.
Well, we know that she has really random connections. So, like, I wonder if she just knew somebody and, like, she probably has the money for it because she was, like, working. At least the Fool was working when Fitz was like dead for a year. So I'm sure they
Oh,
saved up a lot of money and could have like bought the storefront outright, especially because now in Bingtown, like everything is going down the drain. So a lot of people are having to sell their stuff off. And I bet Amber had the money right when she came to Bingtown to buy the storefront, but was like, this would scare everyone off. Let me slowly work my way up to it. And that's why she like had a little front at the beginning and then kind of jumped. She was like, okay, I'm sick of this. Like, I need something bigger and better. And like, I need to be dramatic about it. And that's why she got the Rain Wild like marketplace.
I
That
think
makes
they
sense.
explain it maybe sometime in Mad Ship, but they either don't explain it or like they explain it like briefly when I think when Jack arrives and she's like getting ready to leave or something, and like, what are you gonna do about your store? And she explains that like it was like she was like, I don't remember exactly. I might have just made this up, but I feel like she like explains that she's like leasing it or that she like got it from someone else and like it's fine or whatever. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I could see getting like a vague full answer for sure.
Hmm.
I would love to pick Amber Fool's brain and just be like, how much do you know? Because it seems like certain things she does, like she can sense wizard wood, or like she knows, sorry, she knows that it's like not ethical. It's like, how much do you know?
I bet someone gave her a piece of wizard wood to carve when they saw how well she done it, and then she took off her glove and touched it with her skill fingers, and that's when she realized that had to be how she like figured it out.
Or has she been to the Rain Wilds at this point?
I don't
I don't
think
think so, but I
so.
don't know.
Okay, I feel like
I don't
maybe remember that she like went to the Rain Wilds and like no, never mind. No,
I
no.
think this is that happened after Tawny Man and before the Fitz and the Fool trilogy.
I know Fitz goes to the Rain Wilds,
Hmm.
and then
He like walks all the way
tells,
there, doesn't he?
yeah,
Like
and then tells the Fool, and the Fool's like, you can't walk on the Rain Wild River. And Fitz is like, yeah, it ate through my boots, and then I had to turn around.
yeah, like what the fuck? Fitz is honestly sometimes a little bit too much. like
Yeah.
being friends with him would be too much sometimes. Like you would
I
just
would
need
be,
mental health breaks from Fitz.
Fitz would
I would
definitely
be
be the
so
friend who's
stressful
like,
all the time.
we're doing something fun this weekend. And you're like, can we not just like, can't we just like, well, let's go out for some drinks, please? Like, and he's
Yeah.
like, nope, we're going to like laser tag or something. And it's like, ah.
Where you go hiking and then you're lost for 72 hours in the woods and they're like, "Isn't this fun?"
Exactly. Yeah, we're going
No, it's
camping.
not fun.
Hmm.
There are no tents, no supplies. I
We're
thought we could
living
like
off the
go out for
land. Come
some-
on.
And he'd be like, I spent all my coins on ale at the last inn.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fucking
well, not
Fitz.
all of them. I had to get some elf bark, you know.
Of course, just in case.
Mhm,
But I won't use it. I'll keep it in my pocket.
mhm. But yeah, back to Amber being like weirdly prescient. Like, she has like the two earrings, right? Like the serpent and the dragon. And I was wondering if it was intentional, like because they're both halves of the same coin. And does she like know that at this point?
Absolutely. I think we should assume that she knows everything when it comes to Wizardwood and dragons and everything from the first moment that we meet her when she gets that like disgusted look on her face when Althea compares her to Vivacia.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's when you should know like Amber knows it all.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I am believing throughout this book.
It explains a lot.
That's like one of the best points about this character, though, is that like you know them so well, but at the same time you don't. like they're so mysterious that at any given point you could be like, how much does the fool know? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes he'll be like, I don't know. But other times they know everything.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's interesting because I feel like in the past series they were just like the way they weren't really like super cryptic. They just like said stuff in like long words, and Fitz is like, can't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in this series they're like a little more evasive, or they just say some stuff outright. I'm like, they won't, like, they won't understand it. It's cool. I can just say this.
Yeah. I kind of feel bad for Amber. Like, I'm sure they miss the, like, closeness and oneness that they felt with Fitz. And now they're kind of just, like, having to go among strangers who don't really know them and, like, are kind of mean sometimes to them and, like, enact this change. But they probably really want to just be with Fitz, hanging out with
Mm-hmm.
him and Night Eyes in the pack.
Mm-hmm. And like the Farseer trilogy, the Fool definitely had some difficulties, but I feel like this series is like interesting because it's one of those things where like they don't get there in the end. Like they miss out on Wintro, and so like it feels like even though they're like taking a more active role than they did in Farseer, stuff ends up going more sideways.
Yeah.
It's interesting that she doesn't know. Like, we know the only place that we've seen the Fool, they've known so much. Like, who the catalyst is, what the goal is, blah, blah, blah. And in this trilogy, like, she doesn't know who her catalyst is. She's got it wrong on timelines. And, like, we don't know how much she knows about the goal. Because I feel like later on, it seems like when her and Amber are they on Vivacia together, or is it a different boat they're on together?
I think it's
Or her and
Paragon.
Althea, sorry.
I think it's Paragon, right?
I think it is.
Oh, Paragon, yeah. Like, it doesn't seem like she knows exactly what the goal is outside of, like, bringing dragons back. But how
Mm-hmm.
to accomplish that, she's not sure. So
She also wants to
we
end
kind
slavery.
yeah, and ending slavery. Yeah, we kind of see her, like, stumbling around blindly in a way that she never does in Farseer or
Mm-hmm.
Tawny Man.
It must be hard, like going to a new area and starting over because at least when the Fool meets Fitz, they've been in Buckkeep for at least a couple of years, I think. So they've had a second to like situate themselves and like get into the culture and everything like that, and then they can feel the tug more strongly towards Fitz. But I think starting all over again, it like erases all of those connections and ties that they had, and they have to build all those up again. And doing all of that, building all those ties up and looking for the catalyst at the same time must be pretty difficult. At least I would think it would be.
Yeah, and like
Because
in
it's like,
Buckkeep, like Shrewd was just like, I'll take care of you and provide for everything. Now it's like you're on your own and you need to do everything yourself.
and I feel like the Fool in Buckkeep has a like web that's already made and already spun when Fitz comes and tugs on one of the little strings that are in it, and then the Fool knows to go in that exact direction. But in this series or in this trilogy, Amber is like spinning her web as people are tugging on it, so she doesn't know if that's getting like ripped off or if she should be going in that direction, so it must be so much harder.
For sure. Hey, also, this is like my first Amber note. I don't know how I forgot it. She like touches her like belly, which like when I the first time I read this, I'm like, oh, okay, weirdo. But then like she knows that Althea has the wizardwood charm. How does she know that?
I have no idea. And I don't know, like, I wonder if sometimes the way Amber and the Fool, like, know things, it's just one of those, it's like how B knew that she had to be at that moment, like, in the little, like, thistle or whatever to, like, get her, unlock her tongue. Like, it's one of those, like, just feelings. And, like, I know that this is something that I should do. So I'm going to just act on this feeling without really understanding why I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if, like, Amber does that, or if she actually does know all about the, like, belly button ring and stuff.
I just kind of assume that, like, what do you call it? That it's just kind of a writing tool to make Amber more mysterious because, like, sure, I vibe with that.
The thing is, we don't even know why it makes Althea so uncomfortable, right? Because
Yeah,
we don't
Althea's
know
just
that
like
she.
weirded out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be fair, I would be weirded out also if some stranger was like touching my stomach, and then I had like, if I knew I had a wizard wood charm belly button ring, I'd be like, how do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, what do you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it happens in this chapter, but I do like when Amber's just like, I want to be friends, because it reminds me of like when little kids run into each other and they're like, let's be friends.
I know. I think it's so sweet and cute.
Mm-hmm.
And poor Amber doesn't really have anybody here, so like, you got to make friends by being blunt sometimes.
Yeah. Let's be friends to save the world.
Yeah.
They also they describe Amber as having tawny eyes here, um, and I think Julia knows that the next trilogy is called the Tawny Man trilogy, and I wonder if she'll pick up on that. I don't think
I
she
feel like
will because.
she might.
Mhm.
She doesn't she also like spoil herself and like look up the characters and everything, so
Well,
she might spoil
she
herself.
looked up like a few things, but I don't think she'll know. She didn't know this part of it, so.
I am very excited to see if and when she puts the pieces together.
Hmm.
Which you can do it pretty early because it's like the whole like we need to save the world and also prophecies and stuff is very Fool. But also
Yeah,
like I feel like we're just like not primed to think of characters swapping genders ever. So like
yeah, definitely.
I don't think that I would have figured it out if I hadn't known.
hmm yeah, same. I think
Yeah,
I would have figured it out at the very end when she's like carving Paragon and would be like
carves him with a broken nose. I feel like that could have been a nice little clue.
hmm
Doesn't she give him like an axe also?
Yeah,
yeah.
out of like the scrapings, the leftovers, or something like that. Or is it just regular wood?
I
I
don't
thought it
know.
was wood.
I just remember someone saying, "Why did you give him
Give
a
him
broken
a weapon.
nose or something?" And she's like, "His nose is perfect."
Yeah. I love also like in Tawny Man where she's like, "Ah, nothing could ruin his face for me," and it's like, oh, you.
You're so dramatic.
Mm. Yeah. Also
I
speaking,
wonder.
go ahead.
I wonder if. Actually, I'm gonna go on a different topic, so you go first.
I was just gonna say like, um, while we're talking about Paragon and his face claim, I there's a line where Paragon's talking about himself and he's like, he was frightening, true, but the most frightening part about him was what others had done to him, and I'm like, that sounds very Fitz. That sounds very Fitz. They
Yeah,
He's a scary guy when he wants to be, but mostly it's just tragic what his life has been.
poor guy. I was thinking about Amber and everything that we know the Fool goes through and what happened to them when they were at Claris the first time. And I wonder if it like is painful for them to like have to think about all these dragon stuff just based on the trauma that they endured because of their beliefs about the dragons and everything.
Like, I feel so bad for the Fool a lot, but especially when I'm reading like Tawny Man, and it's like, oh, you think you're going through like the worst that you're ever gonna go through, and later you're gonna get like blinded and your fingertips.
Orford. I think their whole hand was skinned, like it was a nice little skin glove.
Yeah, and they make a glove out of it. It's so
Yeah.
gross and sad.
And it's like it's so awful too because like because they have so much trauma from like what the Pale Woman does to them, and it's like usually like trauma's hard enough to move past even when there isn't stuff validating that like core of fear that comes from being like treated that way, but then like it's like lightning strikes twice and they get like tortured horribly again, and it's like how do you ever feel safe after that, like
You
anywhere?
don't, and that's why you go into the wolf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, also, you talking about the dragon tattoos made me wonder, like, when the Fool first started to like change like color or whatever, I wonder if they were hoping that in doing so the tattoos would come off or like be like bleached out.
I bet. I'm sure. I feel like we think about Fitz and his torture so much and how much he went through, but really the Fool has gone through so much more already, and we don't really know that up to this point. And then they go through even worse. And like they had it the worst, I think.
Yeah, like even before Fitz gets beat up, the guards like take turns using the Fool as a punching bag.
Yeah.
And like even at Buckkeep, under where like the Fool is supposed to feel the most protected or whatever, the their like special room gets like ransacked by Regal's guards and stuff, and it's like, oh cool, nowhere safe. There's nowhere safe in the world.
On that depressing note, let's talk more about Paragon. My last note in this section is me just quoting, I think it's the last line. Althea is going to Paragon and it says, like any other mad relative, he was kept in obscurity, spoken of in whispers, if spoken at all. And I was like, dang, that's very sad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to like get to the part where we learn more about his backstory because I remember that we get explanations, but I don't remember what or how or why. So I'm excited to like relearn that stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we Paragon starts remembering more when they start working on him. And then when he like gets new logbooks, that's when he starts really like getting flashbacks and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we know because I know like what happened, like with Egrot and all that, but like this chapter like threw me off because it says like he came back without his crew like a few times, and I'm like I don't remember how they explained that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember like what the order of events is or which one of them is Kennit's father. And yeah.
Yeah, because like going through, you'd expect it to be Sedge, but then like stuff doesn't like make sense.
Right.
Well,
We'll figure it out.
we'll figure it out. Do we have anything else for this chapter?
I don't.
Okay, so let's move on to chapter 12 of Derelicts and Slave Ships. Okay, so oh yeah, there's
I think
there's
this
like
is
three
a lot
things.
about um, Paragon again, right?
Yes, there's like a thing at the start with Paragon, and then uh, Althea comes to Paragon while Brashen is still there, and they have like the
Par-
a sad conversation in the dark, and then uh, we cut to Kennit and Sorkor grabbing their first slave ship.
Yep.
Mhm.
There's a part at the beginning where it's like talking about Paragon and he's and the fact that he like can you guys hear me? My internet keeps cutting out, I think.
Yeah, you cut out for a small second there, but yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
I'll just mark the timestamp.
But it says that he like almost understood them or they almost made him remember. And that's like such a big hint that the live ships are connected to the serpents, but it's something that only somebody on a reread would notice. Like, and that's one thing that I love about Hobb is just that like she's such a good writer in terms of foreshadowing because on a reread her stuff is so obvious, but on first reads it you like can't pick it out at all.
It's so mysterious, or you just skim past it thinking it's not like important.
Right.
I
And
also
yeah.
noted that
Mhm.
it's they looked deep into his eyes, they wrapped his hull in their sinuous embraces, holding him tight in a way that was both threatening and reminiscent of something. And I was like, a cocoon. Like it's gotta be him remembering being in the cocoon.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's one of those things where like she doesn't like obfuscate anything. She just like it's sort of just like stuff that you don't expect to go together. Just like why would the ship and the serpents have anything to do with each other? Like wizard wood, that's wood. It's just like it yeah, totally. And it's just like just by naming it wizard wood, it may it like it's a misdirection.
Mm-hmm.
But like in the end everything's like laid out there. You can like put together the pieces pretty early. You're just like they're just like so different that you just wouldn't be expected to. I feel like that's just yeah.
I have another quote about Wizardwood. I think it's Sorkor talking to Kennit when they like are going after the slave ship because they tried to get one of the live ships. I can't remember which one. But he says Deadwood has no chance against Wizardwood. The very waves of the sea part for it. And I was thinking like maybe it's because the live ships like not them as the beings, but like them as the like ship remembers what it's like to swim as a serpent, so they know how to like maneuver the water and ocean for them.
I think that makes sense.
That's Gans. I also think there's probably like a little bit of skill involved when it comes to just like their supernatural speed. They because sometimes they just like don't care about the wind and they just move against it. And that part like that's not a memory thing. That's just magic-y magic.
But can the skill like manipulate physical things that don't have like a mind?
I don't even think it's manipulating the water. I think it's literally just like I'm going to just move my little my little boaty thing faster. But like, I don't know. But like, there's
I
some
mean,
magic going on. I'm just gonna assume it's a skill because it involves dragons, and like, I don't think the wit. I guess could you wit push yourself forward? I don't even think that's how it works, but I don't know.
I
well,
feel
I
like
mean,
I don't understand the full breadth of the skill because sometimes there's things that Verity or Fitz can do with the skill, and I'm like, huh?
It's
The
it's
skill
kind
does
of a
that?
it's kind of a convenience magic,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
like
Like
one stop
Verity
shop.
switches their bodies. Like if they can do that, I feel like you can do anything.
Mhm.
I was also thinking like the whole ship is kind of like the live ship's body, and they can manipulate and control things even that are made out of like dead wood for them on their person. Because I know that Vivacia like snaps a line or something to distract some of the like people on her deck so that Althea can come and talk to her. So I feel like it makes sense that they can like heighten or loosen like all of the boards to make it easier for them to sail against the wind.
Mhm.
It also might remind them of flying, because I'm sure the
Yeah,
dragons go against the wind.
definitely. Yeah. The sails are just their wings.
Yep. There was another line from the Paragon section here where it said, "Somewhere in the labyrinths of his memory, a homesick boy sobbed into his bunk." And I felt so sad for
I know.
poor
Young Kennit,
baby Kennit
baby
because I
Kennit.
hate adult Kennit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
They're literally different people. It's fine.
It's different.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're different people.
Hmm. Um, I guess speaking of Kennit, one of my other notes is just like at the end of the chapter, he's being like such a grumpy guts about, oh, I didn't get my live ship, and look, the slaver thing is going so well. Oh, I hate it, and they stink so much, and like it's so funny because he's like there are times when he's like terrifyingly good as a manipulator, but really most of the reason that he's able to get away with manipulating people is because he's goddamn lucky. Because there's times like this where he's just straight up he's like the most obvious asshole possible. He's like, I didn't get my way, and so now I'm mad, and it's like, you are transparent, glass looking
You are
motherfucker
like,
over here.
I think it might be, it's either the next chapter or the chapter after, but when they're actually talking like about um, what comes of getting the slave ship, and like he's just being such a dick where he's like mockingly naming the baby Sorkor and like actively like gagging in front of the slaves and stuff, and everyone like interprets it a different way, so that it's like, oh my god, Kennit was moved to tears and Kennit named the baby after the first mate. And
Yeah, like
it's like
he was like,
just,
yeah,
he's
because
just lucky.
yeah, he's just purely lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
this
think
is something to talk about like way down the line, but like I'm kind of annoyed because I feel like I think I spent lots of this trilogy like expecting there to be some like messaging or like reasoning behind him getting lucky all the time, or like, but it just feels like he just gets, but by the end it just feels like he gets lucky for plot convenience, and that just kind of annoyed me because it felt like an author hand wave where it's like, I can make stuff happen and just say that it's because of his luck and it's convenient for the plot, and I'm like, okay, I guess so.
I think he's like, I mean, in terms of people interpreting his actions in a way that's lucky, I think part of it is because he's been so good of a manipulator in the past that he has them all convinced that he's like a decent person. So then they interpret his actions the way a decent person would act. But because we're in his head, we're like, ugh, he's just a dick.
well, and he feels like nothing. And I think that like it ties into him being forged a little bit because there was a quote that I noted, and it said Kennit felt distant and detached as he watched their hapless victim roped in and secured, and that was like talking about the ship. But he also feels similar when he's like under there, and I wonder if he would have felt something differently or like felt something at all if he had like all of himself and he was going down there.
Hmm. Especially because like he has been like trapped in the hold of a ship before. Like
Yeah.
I specifically think the slaver annoys him a little bit more because it's like there's something there he knows he should be feeling, but he's forced it away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all I had to say for this chapter. Like stuff happens here, but it's mostly transitionary or like setting up for some of the stuff we get in the future chapters.
Yeah, I think my only other note was I wonder if the aggressive turquoise serpent could be Sintara, aka Sinatra.
Yes.
And there's an orange serpent as well, which I know one of the minor dragons is orange, so I feel like it has to be that one. Just because like it's such an uncommon color.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought about the turquoise one being Centaura too. I was like, it could be. It's mean like her.
I love how that's just her main personality trait, asshole.
I mean, yeah.
I feel like if you appear in this trilogy, you're just obligated to have personality trait asshole.
I think so.
But yeah, so let's move on to chapter 13, transitions. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but Althea meets with Amber. They hang out and become besties. Wintro and Kyle have words because Wintro's like, actually, I don't think I want to be on the ship. You should get Auntie Althea instead. And basically, both him and Althea are kind of setting off on their divergent paths now. I felt like before the chapter, there was kind of a sense that they're still connected in some way, or that like they could still like reconcile. And like this chapter's like, no, they're firmly on different paths now.
One thing that like struck me about this chapter in particular is how different Amber is to the Fool. Like they're both mysterious, but Amber's a lot less whimsical. And I feel like that's because the Fool is tailoring what like the personality they show to what the person they're talking to is going to respond to. Because like Fitz responds to that whimsy and like the riddles, and that's what makes him like actually listen to the Fool and think about what they're saying. But I don't think Amber would respond to that. I think Amber would just, or sorry, Althea. I think Althea would just be like, "You're crazy," and like write her off and walk away.
I kind of had the not opposite, but like I kind of felt like the reason, like I feel like Fitz also didn't respond super well. He was just like confused and was like, huh? So I feel like Fool learned like, oh, okay, that doesn't work. Let's try a different approach with this person.
I wonder which aspect is more likely or more closely related to the Fool's actual personality. Like, I wonder, I feel like the Fool is much more like the Fool than the very, like, serious Amber. I feel like when they're being Amber and, like, Lord Golden, they're putting on more of a front.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, but there's also like the thing in Tawny Man where the Fool very pointedly like makes it a point to be like, this is me. Like I am all of these things encompass who I am.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't want to pull a Fitz here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that like we feel like the fool is the most the fool. Okay, that's kind of a tautology, but like the fool personality is the most them because we spend most of the series like with them hanging out with Fitz, and that's like how they present themselves in front of Fitz. So I wonder if like if we have like three Althea trilogies or like something like that, would we feel that Amber makes more sense than the fool?
I think the reason that I tend to think the fool is closest to the fool is just because they love Fitz and they're like best friends with Fitz. And I feel like you're usually most yourself when you're with your best friends or the people that you love. So I think we get like the closest to the true personality in like the end of Tawny Man
Mm-hmm.
or like
Actually, you know what?
after.
You know what? We should call that the beloved personality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Beloved, yeah.
Because I think that like I almost feel like I conflate like the beloved and fool personalities, but the fool personality tends to be like a little bit more bombastic, a little bit more like silly, and there's elements of that, but it's not like as crazy wacky. There's still like that element of fun, but they're not like tumbling all over the place or whatever.
Yeah, and the fool still makes, or beloved still makes little like quips and jokes and little songs and stuff like that.
Mm.
Because I think that's just who they are.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
I just wish Amber would make up little songs and stuff. I know that when Amber is carving Paragon or like helping to restore Paragon, she does like sing little things to herself or like hum stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm. Also, wait, we were speaking earlier about like ways that you would probably guess that this is the fool, and I feel like in this chapter when Althea is talking about the beads, it's like the exact same way that Fitz thinks about the fool's puppets in Assassin's Quest, like the thing of like kind of like or the way that Fitz is talking about like making the harp for Starling, where it's like finding a shape that existed in the wood rather than carving it into something.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
like if you're perceptive and pick up on that parallel, you could definitely guess by this point.
There's one part. Well, it's about Wintro though. So are we okay to move on from Amber?
Yeah.
Sure. I want to
Okay.
come back to the Amber part, but like I think both of the
I
scenes
feel
in
like,
this chapter are like super intertwined. So let's go
and I
for it.
feel like talking about Wintro usually leads back to Amber, at least for this section.
Because
Yeah.
he's her catalyst.
Yeah. Um, it just made me laugh when Wintro's like doing one of his rambling inner monologues. And he's like, it had been easy to look at the lives of farmers and shepherds and see how much of their misery was self generated. I was like, Wintro, you're so pretentious. Like, it reminded me of those people that are like, oh, you're just sick because you want to be sick. Like, it's in your head.
Like,
It's
stop being so lazy. Like, if you just
Right.
applied yourself and it's like,
If you ate more kale like I do, you'd be so much healthier.
have you
Fuck
tried
though.
like working out? And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Huh? Thanks for the suggestion.
Like,
You know,
Wintro, someone who's
self-care.
never had to farm or shepherd, being like, oh, their misery self generated. Okay.
If only you got to live a cushy life as a philosopher like I did.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he's just a little douche.
But again, like
He changes.
I get it because
It's
like
a very 13-year-old perspective, you know?
mhm. He and he's in a unique position of having no life experiences and so being snooty because of that and also be having the Vestrit complex of being, woe is me, I am the only one who matters in the world. So, you know,
And my
good.
problems are the biggest.
Yep. A little 2-for-1 there.
I loved how we went from talking about in how the like chapter is broken up. It goes from talking about Amber and how Amber's looking for a nine-fingered slave boy, and then the next section is Wintrow, and the first thing they're doing in his section is talking about his hands, or like him thinking about his hands, or he's doing something with his hands. It was
I did
so.
not notice that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was like they said something about the calluses on his hands, or like he started noticing how like his hands were looking rougher, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. It's like, and even if you, like, there's no way you can know about the nine-fingered slave boy thing at this point, but Amber is like, when talking to Althea, and Althea's like, why do you care about me? And Amber's like, you see the flow of events, you are able to tell how you could most easily fit yourself into it, but you dare oppose it, and why? Simply because you look at it and say, this fate does not suit me, I will not allow it to befall me. And it's like, that's exactly like Wintrow. And then we move to a section where Wintrow's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be on the ship. This is not my destiny. I am meant to be a priest. Take me back to priesthood. And it's like, so yeah. Also, wow, now that we're back on Amber, I'm just gonna. There's a line from Amber where it's like, I am more than willing to argue with coincidence, but the few times I've argued with fate, I have lost badly. And it's like, and she also says, but that is not true of all folks. Some folks are meant to argue with fate and win. And I love how like just pretentious these lines are. I feel like Amber as the fool would like absolutely say these same things.
Mm-hmm.
Just they would like fit it in the middle of like a long poem or something, and just like Fitz would be like, you're so complicated, fool. Why can't you just tell me things straight up?
I wonder if the people who are meant to like argue with fate and win are the ones who are the catalysts. And that's how the fool can like pick them out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like every time she said that Fitz was gonna get poisoned or die or something, he does, but then he just somehow survives it.
He just shrugs it off.
Yeah.
Fitz is the person who's like, have you just tried not being sick? And he's like, yeah, you know, maybe I will.
Right.
He tells a story about how as a kid he fell out of like a 3-story window and was like perfectly fine. Got up to play with his friends. It was an easier way down. I didn't want to take the stairs.
Come on, like I shrugged off like being paralyzed. You can too. Come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, also Althea being like, you sound like a fortune teller, and it's like, I wonder why.
I love that there's a little wolf beat in the mix because I'm sure Amber misses our wolf as much as we do.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that she doesn't miss the warmth and the snuggliness and the cuteness that is Night Eyes.
The wise
I was
warrior.
thinking about Night Eyes a couple days ago just because like I missed him. And I was like thinking about his name and I'm like, I wonder when Fitz calls out to him, if he calls out the like image that he had or if he calls out the word. And I think that he has to call out the image because that's what's like tied to Night Eyes.
Well, but also Night Eyes has become more human as a result of exposure to Fitz, so probably
it's probably like a combination. Oh, I want to read Assassin's Quest again.
You really want to go through 700 pages of traveling? And remember, there's a good portion of them where Night Eyes isn't there.
I'll skip that
I
part.
know. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, you're gonna read like 100 pages of the book then. Gotcha.
Yes.
Mhm.
I think I only have one more note for this chapter, and it's a quote. And I think that Wintro might say it. Um, it's it is only in the last few generations that we have begun to separate the halves of our whole. And it got me thinking like that in the last few generations is when Claris really started gaining control over the world, and that's when like Buckkeep fell into their like dark ages, and that's when Bingtown started regressing with the way that they are like viewing women and all of that stuff.
Claire sucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, oh yeah, I have like a few more quotes here. Because I feel like there's so much that like Wintro says that I'm like, Uh, so Wintro's uh, in one of his like self-despairing rants, and he said he had always taken a secret pride in his ability to summon beauty and hold it. But had it been his skill at all, or had it been something created instead by the teachers who insulated him from the world? Perhaps, given the right atmosphere, anyone could do it. Perhaps the only remarkable thing about him was that he had been given a chance. I'm like, this is what we were saying, that like, that there might be like this thing of like skill proclivity for like most people, and they just need the right way to exercise it or like develop it.
Hmm.
Because we were like talking about like it's probably a mix of both inherent skill, sensitivity, and also being given the right environment to train it. So, but yeah, I like that like Wintro like directly calls that out, and even says like skill, though not with a capital S.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that Wintro would take that thought and go forward with it instead of turning around and being the like stuck up boy that he is for a little bit longer. Because he does have moments of clarity and then they just like brush past him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like instead of despairing here, he should like flip the script and be like, well, if anyone can do that, does that mean in the right environment anyone can learn and practice the skills that they're supposed to? So I can learn the skills of the ship,
Yeah.
and I've already started to learn the skills of the ship, and like it goes back to what he was talking about with his hands callousing, and it's like, huh, I'm adapting to my environment, but like he's too focused on himself and not the big picture, which he admits. Like he's talking about like within the massive stone walls, it had been easy to discern the underlying order in the world. Now that he was out in the midst of it, he could still see some of that pattern, but he was too weary to examine it and see how he could change it. He was tangled in the threads of his own tapestry. Um, and yeah, I think I had like one last note, which is um, there's a scene at the very start of this uh, chapter where Brashen's saying goodbye to Paragon, and like I forget how it comes up, but like Paragon's like, you humans have an option that I don't. You always have like Brashen's talking about how like I think he doesn't know where he's gonna go after now that Vivacia's gone, and like he doesn't have many options. And like Paragon's like, you could always die. I can't die, but you can die. Have you considered dying? And so the chapter ends with Wintro talking about he could disappear into time as though he'd never been born, and I feel like that ties back into the start of the chapter, where it's like,
I didn't even notice that.
and just like Kennit, Wintro is a sad emo, despairing boy in the ship, in the hold of a ship. So, and he's on a live ship and potentially transmitting those feelings to Vivacia. So, coming full circle a little bit.
And Kenneth thinks about doing some nasty things to Wintro, like what happened to him when he was a boy.
Yeah.
Like,
Kennit's so gross.
yeah, he's fucking disgusting.
I hate him so much. There's so many characters in this book that I just hate so much.
It makes it hard to reread it, but it's so good. You can't not reread it.
And we love to hate them, so.
Yes, absolutely. I need a lot of anger in my life.
Yeah, I had a lot to say this chapter, but I think that's the end of it. What about y'all?
Yeah, I'm ready for the hatred of the next chapter because I think that's all I got.
Okay. Chapter 14, Family Matters. So yeah, I think the chapter starts with Keffria and uh, being like, oh, they, I did. Can I let Windrow go? And Kyla's like, it's okay, he'll be fine. I'm gonna turn him into a man. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Kennit is just like going onto the slaver, like we mentioned earlier, and being like, oh, I hate it. This sucks. This is awful. This is the worst idea ever. But then, by luck, it turns out that the slaves were actually the people of, what is the name of the town?
Askew.
I do
Askew.
not remember.
And so everyone hailed him as a hero who somehow knew this. And so, the and yeah, so that's the chapter. It's just being angry about Kennit.
I completely forgot that that happens in this chapter because all I focused on was hating Keffria and Kyle. I literally bypassed Kennit. I'm like,
It's
yeah,
so
whatever.
funny because I have no notes about the first scene, and all of your notes are about the first scene. By our powers combined, we have the full chapter.
Yes, we can do it.
I have about half and half, so I'm like the middle grounder for you guys. Sorry, I tried to mute myself and it didn't work.
I just couldn't get over my hatred. I think Keffria is so fucking stupid. She's so stupid. Like,
It makes it even worse because like there's part of her that knows shit ain't right.
yeah,
And like she's just ignoring it intentionally because she's like, me just woman, me can't think thought by myself. It's like,
that's what her husband told her.
Mhm.
I think she's such a fucking stupid ass bitch. Like I said before. Because she's like crying about how she like can't see Wintro and she's like begging Kyle to bring him back up. Does she not realize that she is the one who owns Vivacia? And she can go down to the ship whenever she wants and see her son who is down there on the ship. Also, I was thinking, I think we talked about this the last episode, or I just like made it up. But I know that Amber says something about in some section about how like it's wrong to talk about your live ship like owning it when they're a living being. And it's like it
she says that to
her,
Alpha.
yeah, and her wanting to free the slaves probably ties into her wanting to free the live ships too because she knows what they are and that they are actually living beings and they kind of are like the last slaves then.
They're slaves and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Which might be even worse than knowing you're a slave because at least you can escape if you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're oblivious to it, you don't even know what you're missing.
Oh, I remember what the town is or the island or whatever. Well, I don't remember. I see it in my notes. That Kennit drops the slaves off on. It's Askew.
Okay, cool.
And he like just randomly picks it, but then a bunch of people that are related to those slaves live there.
Yeah.
He's like, this is closer than Divvytown. Divvytown is way too long to get the stinking ship over there, so let's just drop it while we can.
Mm. And Sorcerer's like, "You're so wise, Master. Oh my god, how did you know?" Sorcor. I feel so bad because I love Sorcor, but then he gets taken in too. Everyone gets taken for a ride.
Yeah.
Doesn't he end up like marrying somebody and like he it works out for Sorkor. He gets like everything he wants.
Does he end up dying when like the serpents attack the ship, or
So
does he survive?
I
Because
think
I know that a lot of people end up dying. Like I think that there are sailors that we don't know yet who do end up dying. But maybe it's like a satisfying one because they're mean and we hate them.
I hope Sorcor doesn't die. Sorcor's like one of the few characters in this series who I think
Leah
deserves a happy ending. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Even he's like one of the few because there's so many characters in the series, but he's one of the few non-point of view characters who I actually give a shit about.
same.
I think the other one is probably Rain, and the only reason we don't get a point of view for him is because he's like supposed to be this mysterious weirdo.
I think we do eventually because I remember him like thinking about
He like worries about Malta and he's like, I hope
Magula.
that I can get to her.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
bad
he
then.
does.
Talks about hearing
Going
the
into the
dragon.
cocoon area. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Right, right, okay, yeah, my bad. I totally forgot about
So
that.
Swarkor and Amber are the only ones that we give a shit about who aren't in the perspectives, like giving us their perspectives.
Mm.
I have another quote that just fuels my hatred for Keffria. She's thinking about Wintro and wanting him to be back with her and stuff. And she thinks Kyle was his father. Surely he would let no harm come to him and would tell her if there was any real reason for concern. Bitch, you watched your husband knock your son out, and you're telling yourself, oh, he would tell me if there was something that I should be concerned about with my son. What? Excuse me, what?
Meanwhile, he ends up getting Wintro branded with slaves tattoos.
I just want to sucker punch the shit out of Keffria. Like, please, can I just knock her out once? Just put us in a ring one time and I'll beat her up and then it'll be fine and I'll feel better about stuff. Like, I hate her. I hate her the most right now. And I didn't think that I could.
I think I hate her like less because like despite how like passive and like shitty she is, I feel like at least like while she should definitely have more agency, there's definitely like part of it which is just like the societal plus Kyle influence on how she's acting, while Kyle is just like Kyle is just a dick for dick's sake. But yeah, no, it doesn't like excuse any of the way Keffria acts. It just makes me like able to understand her character more than I do Kyle's, I guess.
I think that her passivity makes her even worse because there are clearly things that she can do to change stuff and to make things better for like her children and herself, and she just chooses not to, which pisses me the fuck off.
Well, and she knows what's right and what's wrong. Kyle like genuinely thinks everything he's doing is right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Keffria just goes along with it even though she knows it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. She's confusing to me also because she was raised with like a mother that was handling stuff and she's just like, I don't want to handle anything, so I'm just going to lean into misogyny so that I don't have to do anything ever.
I mean, I think that's exactly why she doesn't want to handle anything, because I think she explicitly states like she didn't want to be like her mother, who is always overworked, tired, the all over the place at the May harvest, had to handle the books and was always stressed and whatever. So she saw her mother, but took away like the exact wrong lesson, which is like work is hard.
I think it's also in this chapter when Malta comes in and like goes behind Keffria's back to ask Kyle if she can get like a long dress for the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And Keffria gets mad and lashes out and like childishly punishes Malta by telling her that she needs to like finish her embroidery by the end of the day. And I'm like you're clearly not raising your kids right. You are not a good mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows. Even with the way that you treat the kids and like the way that you raise the kids that are yours at your house. Like you it's clear that the servants were doing the raising of the kids.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of raising the kids, Kyle spends like 90% of his time talking about Althea, about like, oh, she's so willful. If only Ephraim had taken a stronger hand with her. And then he turns around and does the exact same thing with Malta, where he spoils her to death, and then she, because of that, she ends up doing some real head ass stuff later on.
Yeah. I
He's
didn't
like, he's
even
such a
think about
hypocrite.
that. Wow, he fucking is.
Mm.
Kyle's approach to parenting reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have seen Arrested Development, but there's like a school that the characters go to where the slogan is children should be neither seen nor heard. And it's like that's where Kyle wants all his kids to be neither seen nor heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He wants to have kids to carry on his like genetic line, but he does not want to see or associate with the kids because he doesn't give a shit about them.
Mm-hmm. Like, I honestly think that he indulges Malta just to annoy Keffria, because before that, he was just like, me and your mom are talking, like, go away now.
Yeah.
And then as soon as like,
Sure.
mm-hmm. And as soon as he realizes like Keffria's not giving Malta something she wants, he's like, okay, I'll just be petty and give Malta what she wants just to annoy my wife because we're having a argument right now.
He wants to assert his authority.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really interesting that in this chapter, both Wintro and Keffria talk about seeing Kyle as a stranger for like a single moment. And I thought that was really interesting because I think that he is a stranger to both of them, but in different ways. And I think that Keffria saying that is the first time that she's like actually thinking a single thought for herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a start.
Yeah.
It's a start.
Not much, but it's something at least.
Mm.
But that's all my notes. I got my ranting out and I feel better now.
My only other note was about Davad or David or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I like how every
but-
time you say his name, like
I
you
say
don't
it
you
like 3 ways. I have
no, but
idea.
you specifically say Davad or David or whatever, like that exact line.
Yeah, I do not know how to pronounce his name, but he can't take Rach back.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like earlier wondering, like I couldn't remember why, and it's literally just because she resents him for her kid dying, and he knows that, and he can't handle facing like the horrible things that he does because he's just too much of a coward.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh, he sucks so much.
Yeah, Davad is kind of. I think Davad as a character is like so interesting. Again, I feel like I'm not like a Davad stan, but I think that like I never see anyone discuss him, and I think that the role that he plays in Liverships is like super interesting because he's
A Davad stan.
he's just like he's such a good like pulse for basically Bingtown. He's just Bingtown in human form.
Yeah.
He is the cause of a lot of things that happen. Like he is kind of he's a background character, but he's a strong plot device.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that like doesn't he pick up Malta in the carriage, or like insists on Malta dancing with the satrap, or there's stuff that he gets the ball rolling on through like just insistence and stubbornness.
Yeah,
That
and he
move
shows
this forward.
Paragon to try, like he's trying to sell Paragon to someone, and I think that results in something as well.
Yeah, that's the first time that we see Paragon.
Yep.
That probably stirs up Brashen getting Paragon for himself. Because Paragon knows that, like, there's the potential that he could be sold. So he probably tells Brashen.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I know that comes back somehow. That sounds like a
Yeah.
likely thing.
I wonder if he even helps Brashen get Paragon.
I don't think so.
I don't remember.
I don't think I remember him doing a single good thing intentionally.
Yeah, I think that he actually. Oh, I think he kind of helps Brashen get. Well, the only way that he helps is like, Amos Ludluck comes through, and it's like, we don't really love you, so like, you can be Brashen's or whatever. Because like Amos is the one who's trying to sell him, anyways. I guess like one of my last notes is, do we know why Kennit has a raven as a symbol?
I do not.
I don't think so.
Kind of a missed opportunity then, IMO, because I feel like could have put something there that was more like symbolic or whatever. But like, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, cool.
Well, ravens are really good, like, mimics. Like, they can, like, learn to talk and, like, repeat stuff back. And I wonder if that's, like, part of it. That Kennit, like, is playing a little role. And he's just, like, mimicking the emotions that he sees other people feel. And, like, the way that he sees them express them. But he's not actually feeling them himself. And, like, maybe the raven is, like, repeating back words that they've heard but don't really understand them themselves either.
If that's the case, I feel like it's a huge opportunity missed. He's a pirate. You could have given him a parrot. Come on now.
Oh my god, he does get one leg. That's too cliche. Doesn't somebody have a parrot? Or am I misremembering?
Maybe the
somebody
satrap.
gets
I
a
feel like
bird.
the satrap is kind of the type to have a parrot.
I thought it was someone with an S because I thought it was like Sorkor got a fucking bird or something weird like that. Like, he starts babying a bird.
Yeah, I think that's all I had to say for this chapter. How about y'all?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. So I think, yeah, that was the last chapter for this episode. So thanks y'all for listening. We'll be back next week with chapters 15 through 19. Yeah, and I think that it's going to be an interesting transition because we're going to be moving into some of the characters actually like doing stuff. And I think we might be getting away from some of the characters we hate, hopefully. I don't... So...
It would be nice.
It would be nice. But yeah, until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.